We are back, and I'm very excited about a wonderful presentation from Stephanie Padilla at Intel. We're going to move on to a panel now, but I want to take a moment here and I want to talk about one of the items that Stephanie touched on her presentation that's very important of our personal and professional growth, and that is fear of failure. Have you noticed how I made a mistake in announcing the next panel? I said that the next panel was going to be about CRM and fintech, and it's not. It's about understanding the profile of the worker in the digital area. But this is very important to make a point about fear of failure. Nobody's perfect, and you should not be perfect. Make it about progress over perfection. Embrace your strengths, manage your weaknesses, like Stephanie talked about, and be kind on yourself and work with purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience to continuously improve. Remember that. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists here. Sarah, do you want to say a few words before we start this next segment?
This is critical for the audience. I think one of the things I like to add is our goal is to generate job opportunities. So everything starts with yourself. So think about who you are, what do you bring to the table, and what else you need to learn to become that future leader that we all need. So this is a great panel. I think introducing Ruben and everybody else will be an amazing start. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be right here with you guys.
Exciting stuff coming ahead here. I'm going to introduce this great moderator, Ruben Luque, for the cross-industry panel we're going to have next. Ruben has been with Verizon for 25 years and has held a number of roles with increasing responsibilities from frontline and wholesale operation support to HR strategy and employee engagement. Currently, he and his team enable the capture of sentiment across the employee life cycle to inform programs and decisions made by leaders in HR and in the business. Additionally, Ruben manages the digital employee experience of the company's HR intranet. Ruben, it's wonderful to have a great collaborative leader like yourself sharing your wisdom and expertise with our global Latin audience. Thank you so much for your generosity.
Thank you, Jose, for that wonderful introduction. I think you've set some pretty high expectations. I just want to make sure that everybody could hear. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for that. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the people that are attending, and welcome to the Stream to Succeed mega event. As Joseph said, understanding the profile of the worker and the digital era and the growth mindset. I'm really honored to be here, and just a little bit of background on myself before we get started. My name is Ruben Luque. My background is Colombian. My parents came from very humble beginnings. I was moved by what Sarah shared about her background. I also, once we came to the United States, I grew up inner city, and then through a number of people, because nobody does it alone, through a number of people, a number of interventions, I'll say it that way, some angels along the way, I got on a path that led me here to Verizon. I've been here for 25 years, where I'm the digital director for engagement and experiences. So before we get into the panel, I just want to just give a point of view from my position. I think I've had the distinct opportunity to see how events change the way that multinational companies like Verizon do business, the way that we attract and grow and retain our employees. But in doing that, I also have to look at what's happening across the globe with other companies as well. It's very important for us to understand why we choose the employees that we do and why those employees choose us, and more importantly, choose to stay with us. As you guys know, the pandemic for the last 2.5 years has really upended, or as we say, or changed the way that businesses do their work, and how people or talent, the folks in the audience, how you think about your careers. There's been an incredible exponential surge on the reliance on digital connectivity more than ever before. And I think as a whole, a lot of large companies have accelerated their ability to work in a hybrid environment by 10 years easily. I can share with you, because this is a program that I managed at one point. I can tell you that Verizon was able to mobilize its own workforce of 140,000 workers, about 80% in a week, which is unheard of for companies that don't normally do that kind of work. The pandemic, essentially forces us to reevaluate our paradigms. It also lets us know that we can and actually need to do work in a non-centralized way, and more importantly, in a frictionless manner, as frictionless as possible. And that's where my work comes in. So the world truly is flat. It forced a lot of us to get comfortable with the idea of remote teams. And I could tell you for myself, I've had some team members that are remote and in other places, so I'm used to that. But for some other leaders, now you had remote teams being in the same city, the same country. And what's more important is that we got to see our talent, and we'll get to see all of you in an environment that's not always a corporate environment, to see people authentically. And that goes a long way. There's a lot of other things that are happening from a landscape perspective, where companies are asking themselves, and we're asking ourselves, do we need real estate as much as we have within our portfolio? How do I continue to save money, and where does that money go? Because it's not just selling off real estate, but now it's pushing some of that money to benefits and medical insurances and things of that nature, and also 2.5 years of COVID management. How do I deliver the best training? How do I, again, source and attract and retain the best talent, regardless of where they're located? So, as you're saying, we have a wonderful panel here today with some very, very professional individuals that really understand their space and the implications of this new normal, and the opportunities that abound for all of you that are watching, as well as some, cool tricks and tools that we have to keep in our back pocket. So we had some slides. I don't see a way for us to share some of these slides. At least I'm not seeing them. But I'm going to just go off of.
Ruben, if you go to the bottom of your panel, there will be a share screen that you can.
There we go.
Yeah, hover, and then we should be able to choose.
Again, embracing fear of failure right here in a live environment.
That's right. That's right. And you're succeeding.
Okay, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. All right, so as I was saying, the world truly is flat and the lines are blurred, and success has a new look, right? So a little bit about our panel. So I was fighting a little bit of a raspiness throat, and typically I would introduce each of them individually and go into what each of them do. Instead, we have this slide up that can just show you who's on our panel, and I'll just say their names, their titles, and the companies that they work for. And then I'll ask each of them to just state a little bit of what they do. So we have Aiden O'Neill, Senior Client Partner from Blueback Global. We have Carolina Taborda Kruse, co-founder of SEAMED in Latin America. That's what LATAM stands for. Yorka Velasco-Caballero, co-founder of I Am Power, and Marisol Weymouth, also co-founder of I Am Power. And you'll notice she has a PhD, she's Dr. Marisol Weymouth. And then myself, Ruben Luque. So if we can have our panelists turn their cameras on. Great. Hey, Aiden, I see you.
Hello.
All right, excellent. I see Yorka. Okay, and I see Mari, perfect, and hopefully Carolina. Very good. So Aiden, tell us a little bit about what you do over at Blueback Global.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Thanks, Ruben. So Blueback Global helps companies expand internationally. So I work as a client-facing client partner, primarily with clients that are expanding to Latin America. I also specialize in helping nonprofit organizations expand worldwide. And then
Excellent, thank you. Okay, I don't know if Carolina's with us. Okay, if not, Yorka, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yorka Velasco-Caballero. I have had the pleasure to be in the marketing, sales, business development, and process improvement arena for the past 22 years. I am the co-founder of I Am Power, a nonprofit organization that focuses on empowering women into being their best version of themselves. And it is a pleasure to be here and welcome everyone.
Thank you. And Mari, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ruben. I'm Dr. Marisol Weymouth, and I'm currently president and CEO of People Whisperer Solutions. I focus primarily on leadership and change management consulting, partnering with individuals, teams, and organizations to manage change every day. And I am very honored to be partnering with Yorka as the co-founder of I Empower, having an impact on as many women that we can to, again, empower and inspire and to create and foster a safe community where we can share and grow together.
Excellent. Okay. So do we know if we have Carolina on yet? Nope. All right. Well, hopefully she can join us. All right. We're gonna move on. Okay, so there's a lot of things that are happening, I think, with the state of affairs that I covered up front, with technology replacing a lot of positions at a growing rate, the normalization of COVID and remote working now the norm versus the exception. So this raises a lot of opportunities for companies and more specifically for leaders, and also it raises challenges. Some of them I already covered. But again, our panel is going to talk about what are some of the opportunities for talent from Latin America. What is the growth mindset and accountability that one needs to have in this new normal? What is the importance of having community and building and nurturing your network? And hopefully if Carolina joins us, how important it is to have an environment within which one can grow. Okay, so I'm going to just keep these 4 areas up so that our viewers can just remember what it is that we're talking about and why we're talking about it. All righty. Very good. So, like I said, globalization, especially in Latin America, has, well, I'm going to say globally, has been complicated from a U.S. perspective. Aiden, how would you characterize the expansion to Latin America pre-COVID versus what you're seeing now?
Yeah, it certainly had an impact on everything. As you mentioned, over the last 2.5 years, so much has changed. And so if you think back to 2018, 2019, the companies that we saw that were approaching us as clients and as potential clients, they were intrigued by Latin America, but there was a lot of caution and hesitancy when it came to their interest in the market. Of course, Latin America is a market of over almost 500 million people that is very close geographically and time zone wise to the US. So there's a lot, and the purchasing power of that market has been growing. It's a very young population, so there's been a lot of interest over the decades. But it also comes with a perception, whether it's based on reality or just reputation, of a lot of political uncertainty, currency risk, a lot of risks that clients would not be as comfortable necessarily as coming to us and saying, I want to expand to the UK or even to Singapore or something like that, which were our more common destinations for our clients. So, and if you think about that time, there was also a decrease in the rate of globalization at the time, just really due to the political sentiments globally around nationalism and protectionism. Those sentiments were growing at the time. So then you have 2020 and the just kind of massive halt to everything that happened at the time. Our office just stopped receiving requests for any kind of expansion for a couple months. But then what started happening was a change in thinking around, really, Ruben, again, what you alluded to in your intro, the decentralization of work, the reason that we're all here in so many different locations. Me from Denver, speaking to people all around Latin America and the world, that you don't have to necessarily be in that office of 50 people or that large manufacturing plant or sales center that might have been a lot of work, a lot of risk to set up and to maintain. But instead, you can hire anywhere, even if it's just one person. All it takes to expand to Latin America becomes just one person. If everyone's working remotely anyway, why not expand to Latin America with that next hire. And the other point that I mentioned in my own introduction around employer of record, I'm guessing most on the call may not be familiar with the model, so I'll just go into it super briefly. But it's basically when a company like my own that has an entity, a company in a given country hires a person on behalf of their client. So it allows the client to legally employ them without going through all the steps of setting up a company legally. So it's good for for companies that want to hire 1 to 4 people maybe, or test a market, or just don't want to deal with all the risk and complexities that comes with it and outsource it to someone like us. So the proliferation of work from home, remote work, plus the increasing popularity, really boosted the popularity of this model. That kind of shifted the thinking around, are we expanding to this market for the consumers that are there, or are we expanding for really the labor market, for lack of it, to put it somewhat indelicately? But the ease of hiring in Latin America and the attractiveness of it in terms of salary cost, in terms of talent, and many other factors which we'll touch on later, really it kind of changed the paradigm and changed the way of thinking, the approach of our clients.
Great. Yeah. So, I mean, you did touch on a question that I had, which was like, well, what makes Latin America attractive to companies? And there's clearly the practical, right? Or you said the ease of hiring and the salary costs, right? Is there a particular talent pool that I think you're seeing growing in Latin America that makes it more attractive? And how is this possibly different, or the talent pool possibly different from other regions?
Yeah, definitely. So just by nature of our client base, we're headquartered in Silicon Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area. So a lot of our client base is the technology industry. So of course, a lot of what we see by extension is hiring of tech talent, solution architects, software developers. So there's a lot of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, social sciences as well, that we see as the desired skills in the region. That's certainly not an exhaustive list, but that is generally what a large talent pool that exists in Latin America. And it's also the increasing English speaking level in the country, as well as on the other side, the increasing level of Spanish speaking in the US. There's less of a language barrier year by year. Those barriers are coming down. So the Latin America is just as attractive as it has been pre-COVID for the reasons before, the growth of the market and the opportunities to grow along with the region that it presents versus other more developed markets like the US and like Western Europe, but also the time zone wise, when you're expanding to Europe or to Asia with remote workers, it may not be someone that is working on the same schedule as your own team. So it's a little bit about kind of what Latin America specifically and what makes it attractive, both talent wise and on the consumer side as well.
Yeah, so that's a very big point, because I know, for example, I'm on the Northeast, and I have a distributed team, and part of my team, a lot of it actually, is growing in the Asia Pacific area, right? So typical like India, Philippines, China, but there is a big time shift, possibly 9 hours plus, versus looking at Latin America. At least from a Northeast perspective, and even I'm going to say Central and Midwest, it's helpful to have possibly no more than 5 hour difference in some cases. So it's a follow the sun kind of strategy. Thanks for that. Yeah. What are some of the challenges? So you've talked about what some of the good things are, right? And even the fact that you can have a company of hire and put off some of that risk. But what are some of the challenges that you've, or some feedback that you've gotten from the clients that you've had?
Yeah, so, there's, I guess, 2 categories again, just like the attractiveness of the region. There's the category of what's attractive about expanding, the challenges of expanding internationally in general, no matter the region. which would be factors like cultural differences. Anytime an executive or a decision maker is making the decision to hire internationally or to set up a company internationally, they're choosing to a pretty steep learning curve, unless they've of course done it before or worked in the region before, of how does this region do business, what are the cultural and employment norms there, because they're always going to be different than the headquarters country. And then on the Latin America specific side, of course, you have kind of what I alluded to as some of the hesitancies pre-COVID as well, perceptions and reputation of high levels of bureaucracy, of political uncertainty, really complex regulations at times that companies just think of all that, bundle it together, and just think of it as risk. So that will definitely hold back a company that's maybe on the edge of deciding on Latin America or international expansion in general.
Okay, good. And so I think that the pros outweigh the cons for a lot of companies. What do you think each student and early professional that's watching right now needs to take away from this?
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage them to think of those hesitancies and those concerns and cautions that their potential employers might have, or might still have when they're hiring them. Think of those as opportunities. They are concerned, they are cautious, they're uneasy because there are things about where you are located, your city, your country, your region, that they don't know and they don't know how to deal with. And you being locally on the ground, maybe having grown up there or currently living there, these are things that you know better than they do. So you are a resource for them, even if you are, in a technology role, you're developing software, you're part of a call center, you're part of manufacturing, you're part of leadership. Beyond your specific job description, that you can also add, without even being asked, local country expert, local regional expert on topics such as something depending on your level of comfort, all the way up to how do you rent an office space there, all the way to how does the tax system work. So it just depends on what your level of knowledge is, and you can really be a resource for your company beyond your job description.
Thanks, Aiden. I mean, a lot of what you talked about, it's really, I think, a mindset shift for both the company that's hiring as well as the talent, the professionals that are out there that are seeking to start their careers and or make a career shift, or just go into a new area, if you will. Let's talk about that for a moment. So I think, what are some of the foundational prerequisites that Latinos need to integrate early and throughout their career journey? Again, keeping in mind that most of the attendees are early in their career. Marisol, can you speak to what is meant by having a growth mindset?
Absolutely, Ruben. And just to continue to piggyback on Aiden, first starting with mindset, right? Here today, we have presenters and participants all over the world. We have a global, we're having a global exchange today. And so having a global mindset is really what's needed today. But not only having a global mindset, as Aiden mentioned, having a national and even local mindset is important for up and coming Latinos. Going even further with that is, to your point, Ruben, how do we self-manage our mindsets, right? How do we manage how we think? And so there's research by a professor, and she has a book out by Dr. Dweck, and the name of the book is Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And she has two sides of a spectrum of mindset. And there are individuals that have a fixed mindset. And what that means is that they tend to have static ways of thinking, very limited, versus having a growth mindset where the art of the possibilities, you have no boundaries and you're curious. And one thing that you have hopefully already started to see trends today, and hopefully in the next day as well, is that you not only need to have the technical skills, digital skill sets, artificial intelligence, but you also need the people skills and, emotional intelligence and having the growth mindset. And so how do you self-manage the way you think, and how do you manage your relationships so that you can position yourself for these opportunities that Aiden was speaking about, what Stephanie spoke of earlier in her career. So at the end of the day, I hope that for today, use growth mindset as a primer for you going forward. Are you showing up with an open mindset? And Ruben, if we can go on presentation mode and go to the next slide, I can give some examples of what a fixed mindset may look like and what a growth mindset would look like. If you can go on presentation. Yeah, if you can hit presentation mode, I think that would be helpful as well.
Sure thing. Let me give that a try. Give me a sec.
All right. And if not, we can pivot as needed, Ruben. But what I can cover now while you're bringing that up is having a fixed mindset. First, check yourself, right? Be accountable of self-assessing yourself. So what a fixed mindset may look like if you're avoiding challenges, if you're thinking something's too hard and you don't want to give it a try, if you ignore feedback, that's such a barrier to your growth. Stephanie spoke about feedback and how it's really a gift, and really it's a data point for all of you techies out there. See feedback as a data point, and what is that trying to inform you in terms of what you can be doing differently. And so being open to feedback is really something that can help you accelerate in your growth and development. Having a growth mindset really means that you can be developed. That means, thank you so much, Ruben. Fantastic. For those that you can take a picture of this as well, everyone in the audience. You want to embrace challenges. You want to be able to train your brain. Being here today, that's a significant sign that you have a growth mindset, because you're here to learn from others. You're learning from our mistakes. You're learning from us that we didn't get here overnight, that we made incremental improvements or growth and development over time. And so we had a growth mindset. So we encourage you to also incrementally learn things, be curious. I think that's another common theme that we talked about earlier. And again, feedback is so important. So ask people around you that you trust on some of the perceptions that are coming across around how you're leading, some of your behaviors, because even though you're in the technology, you're going to have to influence people, whether indirectly or directly. And so part of that is how you're showing up and how accountable you are to yourself and how accountable you are with your actions. How deliberate are you to accelerate change, to accelerate your growth, to accelerate positioning yourself for success? And so how do you, make sure that you are prepared with this growth mindset?
Excellent. That's excellent advice. I think that you've given us examples of what this looks like, and the fact that it really is on, I think, the early career starters to think about the fact that they really have to be malleable, right, and flexible, and it's a push-pull type of a thing. But some of what you also talked about is when you're talking about, can I be developed? Can I embrace my challenges? Can I train my brain? Learn from feedback. So that's a nice little segue into, I think, the importance of community and network. And we're going to get to that in a moment. But if you had a couple of words that you wanted the attendees to walk away with, what are some of the things that they need to walk away with? Like two things.
Absolutely. So one thing about growth mindset and development, and it'll complement, the next segment that Yorka will cover is relationships, right? Relationships is what makes the world go round, and how you show up and how you are very deliberate about your mindset and intentions and being thoughtful and showing your people skills, your empathy and your mindfulness. Those are critical skills and capabilities that we all can learn together. And one of the takeaways for me, Ruben, is to encourage everyone to feed your mind. What does that mean? Feed your mind so you can have a growth mindset. That means read books, read meaningful articles, listen to podcasts. There are so many, Carol Dweck's book is one phenomenal, but there are also, I have here a series of 5 HBR mini books that are quick reads, but they're so powerful. So that would be my huge takeaway is feed your mind with goodness. Feed your mind with things that are going to enrich your thinking, your ways of working, and your ways of living, and really embracing relationships.
Yeah, I really like that, Mari, because I think lots of times, we have gone from, I'm going to say like an industrial economy to very much a knowledge economy. And the thinking before was go to school, go to college, you're done. That's it. Just do your job. And what I'm hearing you say is, no, this is constant. This is continuous. This is intentional. You don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer. They're constantly learning, but the world is changing so much. You have to do the same. You have to keep up with it. And I think I heard you say HBR, right? HBR, like Harvard Business Review?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that our audience caught that. The Harvard Business Review, they do have great snippets and distill a lot of information into things that are quite digestible. We were talking about technology earlier, and just how it's changed the world. I know for myself, audiobooks are a good way, depending on the topic, right? You can just absorb that and help to feed your mind if you choose to commute. Excellent work. Thank you so much for that. But again, now we're talking about community and networks and the importance of that. So what I'm gathering, though, is that there's transfer of information. If you think about what Aiden said, we're kind of blurring the lines in terms of where we get our talent. We're also thinking about how we have to adapt ourselves to the environment that we're in. It is a push-pull. It's both on the responsibility of the company as well as the responsibility of the people that work there. So that means that information, again, is transferring as faster than ever, and community is more important than ever. So Yorka, can you speak to the importance of networking now and going forward?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much, Ruben, and welcome everyone. When you think about the importance of networking, I'm just going to take the audience a little back to what Stephanie talked about earlier, which was the notion that we are not self-made, that we are actually the product of somewhere, somehow, someone inviting us to the table, making a connection, making an introduction, being able to open space for us, giving us an opportunity to mentor. That's how important and how networks are born. When you think about what networks are, it's all based on relationships. And if we have learned anything throughout our entire journeys, is that relationships are absolutely everything. They allow us to succeed. They allow us to grow. They give us incredible feedback, as well as they provide us the opportunity and our resource sometimes when we need it. Networking is one of the things that it's not a one thing and done. It's actually an ongoing process, and it is really based on what season you are in your life. So as we have so many students in the audience, I would challenge you to think about how you can expand that network. Who do you admire? Who do you want to be in contact with? What kinds of questions do you want to ask them? Because that's how you start developing that relationship, and that relationship grows into networks and so forth. And it's not, when you think about network, don't also think that it's a linear aspect. It's multi-channels, because based on the season of our lives, we are going to have different individuals that are going to be part of that, different tribes, right? You're going to have great partners, great folks that you admire, people that you want to get to know at different companies, and they all want to be part of different networks.
Mhm. So, Yorka, I know that I like what you said, that it's not linear and that it really depends on where you are in your life. Mentors, sponsors, personal, as this is important personally as well as professionally, is what I'm gathering from you, because you said something like, who is it that you want to model? And I think that makes it, a huge difference, especially when I think there's a segment on entrepreneurship later. So some of this is not in a company, right? It's also if you see someone who's doing something really cool, my God, this guy or girl is effective. How can I be more like that? And those are skills that mentor or that person in your network can teach you, both from your personal and professional life. Talk to me about technology a little bit. Talk to us about technology, I should say. How do we incorporate that? I know some of us old timers, we network and hey, it's by way of introduction, but it's a whole different world, right? With LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, wow. That's a powerful question, Ruben, because if anything, the pandemic has taught us is that we can be very connected, even though we don't share the space geographically, right?
Okay.
When I think about how do you build your network in this digital society, think about the different footprint that you want to leave behind. And this is where you have to be very, very, very intentional. So the differences of digital connection of, for example, Instagram versus LinkedIn, they have and they serve a different purpose. And so what I would share with the audience is that you have to be very intentional about what you post, because they leave behind footprints. And if we have learned a lot about our careers and our journeys, is that as we grow, as we develop, we're also developing our personal brand. So before you post, before you share, really be intentional about what is it that you want to share. And utilize that digital tools like LinkedIn, for example, to reach out to connections that hopefully can help you. But do it intentionally, not on what's in it for me, but what can I do also to be of service. An example, right? If you notice someone doing amazing things, someone that you admire that really focuses and volunteers on educational pieces or educational programs, and you are really keen to that because that's who you are and that's a strength of yours, then you want to connect and want to share best practices, pick their brains, and that's how you start developing relationships. Network is not just about a number. It really is about the connections that you develop, and connections and relationships take time to build.
Excellent. So, yeah, you've given me some stuff to think about, because it does take some time to build. So what would be like a couple of takeaways, that the key two things that you want people to know in terms of networking and technology?
Think about, I know we talked a lot about soft skills being as important as your technical skills. That word has changed, and the pandemic has really propelled that. It's called power skills. And when you think about how you develop consistently with that growth, curious mindset, be intentional about how you continue to develop those skill sets. Be engaged with your future. Do your goals. Does your network match your goals? Think about that. The other thing that's very important about how you are engaged in your own future is that self-talk is actually a secret weapon. So what do I mean by that is that your self-talk is so important. be positive, be kind, and think about that your personal brand, especially when you meet people for the first time. When you think about your personal brand, think about how people experience you. And when you leave the room and they talk about a Ruben or a Mari or a Stephanie, what are they going to say? That's your personal brand. So be intentional about that as well.
Excellent points. And that does make such a difference. Is like what is said when you're not in the room, right? That's the key about your brand. So again, lots of things. As I'm connecting talent now in Latino America, um, uh, Dr. Mari's, growth mindset and being able to flex and be malleable, and not always what you learn in school is what you're going to encounter in the workplace. The importance of community and networking, and it all boils down to, I think, environment at the end of the day, right? And we have a great speaker, I think, joined us. Carolina joined us, and if she did, then welcome for one, and two, I just want to kind of tee her up because there's been a lot of focus um, on what the student or early professional needs to do, but companies also have an obligation. So as you're going into the workforce, Carolina, I think that many companies are probably going to say the right things to attract talent. And there's a lot of focus on onboarding and retention. As I said here at Verizon, part of what my team does now is to look specifically at the candidate experience. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Because we know that first point of engagement, it actually has a multiplier effect to your engagement and your loyalty and your wanting to stay in the company, the perception of the company. A year out, 2 years out, when we do these annual pulse surveys to gauge your engagement throughout. So, what should our digital era professionals look for in terms of culture and environment from a candidate perspective? And before you answer that, Carolina, if you don't mind just giving us a little blurb on yourself, a little introduction of yourself, please.
Thank you, Ruben. And so nice to be sharing with you these all important topics as far as designing the career path is concerned and how to become a professional. That is something that we don't get a guidebook or something like that in order to make it right. So you have to learn through the experience. And well, I think that since Yorka was mentioning, this is all about networking and how we connect, not only as individuals, but as groups. And companies are groups and collectives that are giving us the opportunity to develop ourselves, not only as professionals, but also as person, because we are only one individual. If sometimes we try to divide what is personal and what is professional, but at the end we are the same person. Okay, so when we are looking for an opportunity to develop, and what the companies are trying to offer you is not just a good security as far as payment is concerned, and letting you know that at the end of the month you are going to have your money, but it's something more about purpose. Every person has his own purpose, and only also companies has their own purpose. So we need to learn to connect with those purposes so we can be really engaged in this experience to give the best of us as professionals to the company, but also receive from the company the best of them, because companies have learned that technology is important, infrastructure is really important, but the most valuable asset is the people, because innovation cannot be done without the people. And if you don't believe me, you can try it right now. Ask Siri or Alexa to do some innovation right now. And you know that it won't be possible, because we need the knowledge and the skills, as Jerka mentioned, that we need to connect and to work together in also to make innovation. So when we think of the opportunities that we have right now, you have an amazing opportunities, because you can choose from the whole world where to work. It doesn't matter if you are right now connected from Guanacaste in Costa Rica, or from Managua, or from Guayaquil. It doesn't matter. You can work for any company in the whole world. All you have to do is to develop those skills, the power ones and the technical ones, and start to connect with these companies and let them know who are you as a professional and what you have to offer. But also, you need to know that you can also ask the companies what they can offer you in return, so we can build together a better future and a better experience for both sides.